Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're looking at something that affects every single one of us who plans to step foot outside our home countries. Think of what we're unpacking today as, well, the ultimate flight itinerary. But instead of gates and departure times, this is your definitive map for global travel health. We're digging into the highly detailed International Epidemiological Update from May 17, 2026. If you travel, if you work in public health, or honestly, if you're just fascinated by how humanity navigates invisible global challenges, you absolutely need to see this data.
Okay, let's dive right into this. On our agenda today, first, the 2026 epidemiological map. Second, polio vaccination requirements. Third, the most widespread global epidemics. Fourth, regional threats and tropical diseases. And finally, we'll wrap up with epidemic-free safe zones.
Section 1, the epidemiological map for 2026. Let's start by looking at the sheer scope of our primary source material today.
So our entire explainer today is anchored by this incredibly comprehensive update published on May 17, 2026. Now, you might be wondering, why does this specific date matter so much? Well, it's because this report acts as the modern gatekeeper for global public health and international movement. It doesn't just tell us what diseases are out there, it literally dictates the actual travel requirements and border protocols for nations worldwide. It is, for all intents and purposes, the rule book for crossing borders in 2026. Section 2, polio vaccination requirements. Let's move along and see how this rulebook translates into actionable data and strict, mandatory rules surrounding border entry. The crucial point here is that you really have to know exactly which viral strain is circulating at your destination, because the entry rules are vastly different depending on the virology. If you're traveling from regions with WPV1, that's wild poliovirus type 1, or the vaccine-derived strains CVDPV1 and CVDPV3, you absolutely must have an official international vaccination certificate. No exceptions. These are areas where the virus originates, with a super high risk of international spread. But for the CVDPV2 strain, the rules shift slightly. You need a vaccination document, or in some very specific cases, you can actually just receive the vaccination right at the point of entry. It's a highly nuanced border policy based entirely on the specific strain of the virus. And that brings us to where these strains actually live. You'd probably expect wild strains to be localized in Afghanistan and Pakistan, or maybe scattered across parts of Africa and Asia, right? Places like the DRC, Algeria, and Laos. But here is the real shocker from the 2026 report involving that VCDPV2 strain. It isn't just confined to expected regions. It has actually been isolated in places like the United Kingdom and Poland. I mean, no way, right? This totally shatters that outdated assumption that polio is exclusively a developing world issue. The virus is moving, and the map proves it.
Section 3, most widespread global epidemics. Let's shift our focus away from those hard border rules for a second and map out the sprawling reach of today's major health threats.
This brilliantly illustrates the new reality of global health. Just consider the geographic footprint of monkeypox or monkeypox. We're seeing total saturation in traditionally wealthy regions. It's all across Europe, in France, Germany, and Spain. It's in the Americas, through the USA, Canada, and Brazil. Even major global hubs like the UAE and Japan. So monkeypox isn't a localized outbreak. It's deeply embedded in the most highly connected, highly trafficked global economies.
Now, contrast that mpox map with cholera. The geographic footprint shifts entirely. We're looking at a dense, highly concerning presence that is heavily concentrated in the Middle East, places like Syria and Lebanon, stretching deep down across the African continent, through the DRC and Nigeria, and sweeping across Asia in India and Bangladesh. While mpox is following major commercial flight paths right into Western nations, cholera continues to aggressively exploit regions facing infrastructure, economic, or humanitarian challenges. It is a stark difference.
Then we've got the Zika virus, which maintains this vast cross-continental territory. Carried largely by mosquitoes, Zika spans most of Latin America, stretches all the way across Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands, and touches various African nations. It's a powerful reminder of the sheer scale of our global heat map. You really can't just look at one hemisphere. The epidemiological map requires a truly 360-degree global perspective.
Section 4, regional threats and tropical diseases.
While diseases like Mpox and Zika paint a massive global picture, we also need to narrow our lens to some highly localized, specific regional hazards.
We simply cannot ignore the intense, geographically anchored threats of malaria and dengue fever. These aren't necessarily jumping continents on airplanes the way other viruses might. Rather, they're intensely concentrated in specific tropical zones across Africa and South Asia. If your travels take you to India, Indonesia, or Angola, these are the persistent, localized realities you absolutely must prepare for.
Now, what's really interesting here is the way these specific, severe regional threats cluster together. You got Rift Valley fever and Ebola tightly localized in places like the DRC and Uganda. You have anthrax showing up in Thailand and Zambia. Japanese encephalitis basically blankets parts of Asia and Australia, while Lassa fever is grouped across West African nations like Benin and Nigeria. It's like a giant puzzle, perfectly capturing the essence of localized epidemiology. The threat isn't everywhere, but where it does exist, it demands your absolute awareness.
Section 5. Safe zones free of epidemics. Okay, after absorbing all that dense, heavy disease data, I don't know about you, but I think we all need a breath of fresh air. Let's transition to the places where the report shows 0 active epidemiological situations.
This is a deeply satisfying and calming release. If you're looking for destinations currently completely free of reported epidemics, according to the May 2026 update, here they are. In Europe, you have beautiful spots like Ireland, Monaco, and Estonia. Over in the Middle East and North Africa, places like Kuwait and Tunisia. Honestly, looking at this map, I am so tempted to book a one-way ticket to the Falkland Islands or Uzbekistan just to avoid the mosquitoes. These are the peaceful zones on our global heat map.
So, as we wrap up this incredible data journey, from the strict entry requirements for polio variants right through to our quiet global safe havens, I want to leave you with this final boarding call. In an ever-changing world, is your health passport ready for the future? This epidemiological map is alive. It shifts and changes constantly. Being informed isn't just about reading the news. It's about understanding the actionable data that dictates how we physically move around our planet. Thank you so much for exploring this vital blueprint with me today. Keep learning, keep those documents updated, and travel safely.